Welcome everybody who's on today. Today is going to be a great call. I'm going to be introducing you to Stephanie Gilezan. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Stephanie, Stephanie started her business back in the 1900s. She'll tell you her story, but she is, and was the top commercial agent in Louisville, Kentucky. Don't say Louisville; it's Louisville when you talk on that. But today she's going to be talking to residential agents how you can dip your toe in commercial real estate. Like, look, how can you capitalize on commercial opportunities when you're a residential agent? So she's going to get you set up to work on these lucrative opportunities in commercial real estate and help guide you on what you would need to do to make money on that. So it's going to be a great call today for you to have that. And I want to introduce Stephanie. The last I heard, Stephanie, you had close to $1 billion in listings. Is that right? Or have
You
you
know,
sold a bunch of those?
well, we've got quite a bit of inventory. What's unique about us is we are doing business across the United States in multiple countries. So right now we have listings in 36 states and 5 countries. And that's what's fun about commercial real estate is that it's not about the market you live in and becoming that market expert. It's becoming a niche expert, so to speak. I mean, that's really a huge difference as it relates to commercial real estate. Because look, if you become a specialist in, let's say, hotels, a hotel in Louisville or a hotel in Columbus or a hotel in Los Angeles, they're all the same. It's all about what are they making? What is that buyer buying? How much bottom line, how much income is that buyer buying? And so that's what I love most about commercial real estate is it doesn't keep me in one zip code or one subdivision per se to make money. It's something that I can learn and I can apply it all over the country and in multiple countries if you're with a brokerage that enables you to do that type of business. So it's pretty impressive. You
I love
know,
that, Stephanie. The saying is riches and niches, right? Isn't that the saying from
exactly.
old Zig Ziglar, I think?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And Jim, you said it best. You love these calls to be interactive. And today we want I want this to be so interactive. I want you to ask me questions because here's the thing. When people ask me to talk about commercial real estate, I could write a 100-hour course, right? Because there's so much to say as you start diving into commercial real estate. We can't do that on an hour-long mastermind. And I don't even want to go down those rabbit holes. But if there's something specific to what you've been faced with in your residential business that you want to hear about today, do put it in the chat because we want to address as many of those as possible. One of the things I always like to start out with when I'm speaking to primarily residential agents about dipping your toes into commercial real estate is one, I've been in the business 26 years and every single day I'm learning about something, okay? So remember that education is key and you can't just assume or fumble through a deal, right? You need to actually learn. One of the best ways I got into the business was actually watching and paying attention and doing deals with other people that were established in the industry because I love to sit through courses. And if you just simply Google, I get asked this all the time, so I'm going to give you the short answer. Google Introduction to Commercial Real Estate for Agents, and you're going to find well over 100 courses that you could take for free, masterminds you can plug into, and just start listening to them, okay? Because the most important thing about commercial real estate right out of the gate is that you understand the lingo. Is very different than residential real estate, okay? And a lot of us, early on, when we first get into the business of wanting to look and do commercial real estate, is we don't learn the lingo. And when we call another commercial broker that's had a lot of experience and they start hammering out the letters of the alphabet, we're like, what, right? And you all listen, as soon as you say what to an experienced commercial broker, they're going to eat you for lunch that day. You're going to set off the alarm and let them know that you're not sure about what you're doing. Okay. And that's what you don't want to have happen. Okay. You don't want to give it off. You want to have, benefit of the doubt. And learning that lingo is one of the most important things. You can Google commercial real estate terms and glossary. It's about 300 different pages that you can download, or you can do the short version and just read through those and understand what LOI is, NDA, CA, cap rate, ROI, NOI. There's tons of them. All right. There's absolutely tons of them, but that's going to help you too, because as you start to meet clients that have a commercial real estate need, they're going to say, Amy, I'm looking for, I want to buy multifamily. I don't care if it's 8 units. I don't care if it's 200 units. I'm just looking for that particular cap rate of 8%. You need to understand what it is they're referring to, right? So there's a lot of those things, but those are two of the most important things, is learning that lingo, and you can use the internet for free to learn every bit of that. We're not going to go through all that today on this class. That is for sure. But I've put together some slides not because they're professional. And again, I want you all to ask questions, but I put them together because I get reached out to quite a bit because I'm so nice and giving, which sometimes there's not enough time in the day for everything. But I get reached out to saying, what should I do about this client? And a lot of times it's you all wondering, is this a deal that you should potentially, consider, right? Should you consider it? How do you determine if it's a deal you should keep and fumble through, or should you refer it? And I'm always going to tell everybody the same exact thing. Well, tell me what you know about that deal. If John picks up the phone and says, Stephanie, I've got this opportunity, client of mine needs an office. I'm going to say, okay, well, what do you know about office space? And then I'm going to say, okay, well, where are you going to look for office space? Does your MLS have commercial real estate? Because here's the thing, you all, a lot of markets, the MLS does not have any commercial real estate listings at all. My market, Louisville, Kentucky, 0 commercial real estate on the MLS. The MLS in my market helps us 0. We have to hunt and peck on a lot of different platforms in order to work with buyers or tenants in my market. Okay.
And Stephanie, isn't it true that a lot of commercial agents don't even belong to the MLS because they don't want to pay the MLS board dues, and they don't want to belong to NAR. They don't want to belong to their local realtor association either, because they just want to be a real estate agent, not a realtor.
That is exactly right, Jim. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because so many, so when we talk about licensed real estate agents, NAR always puts out statistics that there's 1.8 million and change realtors in the United States of America. And that is true. Realtors, that is a designation. But if you look at licensees through state licensing real estate commissions, that number is over 3 million. All right. Why is that? Because, like Jim just said, a lot of commercial real estate agents and brokers are not NAR members because commercial real estate is not being done on their board, and they have absolutely no benefit to being a member of the National Association of Realtors for that reason. Okay. And so that brings up a lot of different topics, but the one topic it brings up mainly is that they're not held or under the same code of ethics as you. If you're a realtor, right? We raised our hand and we abide by the code of ethics that NAR puts forth for us. They did not. And so it's different. I'm not saying it's a horrible thing, but there's nothing binding them as to how they're going to treat and do business with you. So that's something that's very important. Even more reason why you don't want to just fumble through commercial real estate and get your head, bitten off by somebody that discovers that maybe you don't know what you're doing. That's going to be the worst thing, right? And so that's how I grade. When an agent calls me, I'm going to take you through a quiz, and I'm going to say, and I'll be honest with you, and I'll probably tell you, you know what? In this instance, I'm not sure. You need to talk to your broker that holds your license. That also, they have an opinion too, because it's their liability. But that's what you need to ask yourself. So many times we get so wrapped up into making 100% of the money that nobody ever thinks about making 100% of $0, right? Think about how often, Jim, do people go at something and they're just thinking they're going to make 100% of the money, but they don't realize that their mistake or their honesty in the transaction or their lack of understanding how things work, are they going to get paid? They might do 100% of the work and get $0. I had a situation last week where an agent called me up. Luckily, he was not with our brokerage. He's with a different brokerage. He leased an industrial building to some people who nobody measured the building, okay? And in a lease transaction, you're paid on price, the tenant's paying price per square foot. And commission is also based on that price per square foot. Well, they were short about 5,300 square feet. That's a huge monthly difference to the tune of about $7,000 a month. They were overpaying in rent. Who do you think they want money back from? That's an expensive mistake, you all. And so those are things you got to be looking out for as you're going through commercial real estate. But we've talked about a lot of this that you're going to see on my slides. But education, all right? There's a handful of states that do have commercial designation licenses. But majority of the states, the same license, real estate license, means you can do both. Doesn't mean you should, but it means you can. There are states in active trying to get that changed right now. Alabama's one of them, where they want Alabama brokers to get a commercial license in order to do commercial real estate. Who knows if that's ever going to happen, but also look at your state to see what your requirements are. Do you need a commercial real estate license? So many of them, there's 18 states that you do need a license in order to sell a business. It is a separate license. So again, look at your state. I don't know all of them. At one point I did, but today I don't know every single one of them that requires that. Okay,
Here's a question. If you were going to
yeah.
partner with a commercial agent on a deal, you know you've got something that's out of your wheelhouse and you want to ethically make sure you're taking care of the client. What would be an offer that you would do to try to learn this? Maybe you want to lease a warehouse, you've never done it before, and you go to a commercial agent. What would be a standard type offering where they wouldn't feel insulted or things like that? You can say, hey, I want to do this, but I want to do it with you. I don't want you to just take it and do it.
I know, and that's a good question because I think majority of them are going to do 50-50. They would do a 50-50 split with you. But here's the thing, okay? That doesn't mean you go and find your commercial specialist and say, here you go, I want 50%, and you don't actually do the work. You know, you need to map out exactly with that broker what type of work you're going to bring to the transaction. And so you can actually use that transaction to learn. I mean, that's going to be the best way to do it. In a good mentor program of commercial real estate, you're going to see 50-50 split, 50, and each person's doing 50% of the work as well. And so that's why you see so many commercial real estate brokerage firms are on a 50-50 split. I mean, they just automatically are a 50-50 split because they do work on teams. They do work together. They do have internal partnerships. And so, you know, and that's because everybody has a different level of knowledge as it relates to commercial real estate. Look, I would be considered a generalist in commercial real estate. And what that means is I've done a lot of different niches in real estate. Doesn't mean I like them, and it doesn't mean I do them today. There's a whole list of things I won't touch. And it's not because I don't know how to do it. It's because I determined a long time ago that I'm not going to do deals that make me unhappy. I'm going to do deals that I can enjoy. And so it's just my personal rule. Like people think I'm crazy for this, but I don't love the whole multifamily industry over the past few years. It kind of, you know, I kind of said, you know what, I'll refer that out. I don't need to focus on that necessarily. You know, so it depends. But you will find, especially in the large markets, your big city markets, Atlanta, Chicago, New York, parts of Texas, parts of California, all over the place, parts of Florida, where commercial brokers will specialize in just industrial leasing. or industrial sales, or just on the listing side, or just on, the tenant rep side. So there's a lot of people that's what they do. I mean, there's gentlemen out there that, and I've got one in mind that all the time I'm reaching out to him because he knows more about it than I do, where he is amazing on the self-storage. That's all he does all over the United States is self-storage deals, storage facilities. I mean, that's his thing. He knows way more about it than I do, and I will call upon him and co-do deals with him because that's where I know I'm going to get paid if I bring him in on the transaction, right? And so that's an important thing. And then I always remind people too, look, you're typically dealing with a much larger and substantial transaction, so the commissions are better, okay? We're not focused on, the smaller things. Now, when I've had agents reach out to me and say, I want to refer you a tenant. And, they say that they want to rent an office space and their budget is $1,500 a month in rent. I'm not personally going to do that deal. I don't work on the tenant side and I don't work on the buy side. I solely work on the listing side and only work with buyers that buy my listings. Again, a rule that is my rule doesn't mean that everybody lives by that rule. That's just my personal rule. However, if referrals like that come into us, then somebody on my teams can work that, and go from there. There's a lot of times where, it may not be for me, but I can at least point you in the right direction of who can help you do that. Everybody always talks about in commercial real estate, and I put this up here because people say, I want to get into commercial real estate because I want to work 9 to 5. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't work 9 to 5. I work a lot. I work on the weekends. Why are we successful? Because we are answering our calls. Between Saturday morning through last night, we had over 103 inquiries on our listings, and every single one of them got a response to. I personally didn't respond to those, but my team, somebody on my team did. And we manage and handle our clients because that's what makes us great and unique. When I entered into the industry, I didn't get my business and build my business because I was smart or the smartest commercial broker. A lot of people latched onto me and became my clients because I simply answered their phone call and I was available for them. So that is a misconception. Now, unless you're with some of the larger firms and they're on salary, and that is accurate. If you try to call, nothing against them. I have a lot of friends at CBRE, but if you try to call a CBRE agent or broker at 5 o'clock on a Saturday night, they will not return your call until sometime on Monday. But that's just to each his own, okay? Again, let's go through and assess some deals. So this is like a daily for me, where people are reaching out and say, okay, client wants to lease 2,500 square feet of office. Finding out, okay, exactly what your level is of expertise, I would say to keep that deal. I would not say refer that deal off unless you're okay with the 25%, 30% referral fee, okay? Because when a client wants to lease a 2,500 square foot of office, if you've got office listings in your MLS, great. If you don't, there are plenty of sites to go to that you do not have to pay and subscribe to find office listings. And right now, office listings are everywhere. There's so many office listings that you could do a 10-minute search online, find about 60 opportunities for your client. And if your broker is okay with you working through that, then absolutely, that is a deal that you could get your feet wet on. It's not a deal that's going to get a broker excited about because there's not going to be a ton of money in it. So it's not a lot to split 50-50 with someone. But we'll go through some of those sites in a little bit on how can you look those up? How do you assess valuation? How do you assess, lease rate per square foot, those types of things. So we will get into that. Now, client wants to purchase land to develop a minimum of 100 single family homes. There's a lot of residential agents out there that specialize in land deals. They know just as much as I do on the commercial side, right? And so again, that's an iffy thing. You know, what expertise do you have with land? But I would say in that instance, maybe you're not looking for a commercial agent to split it with. You're actually looking for a land specialist, and there's plenty of land specialists on the residential sector, tons. Okay. Client wants a valuation on an existing office condominium. Now, my first response to that is, why do they want a valuation? Well, they just want to know what kind of value they have. I don't give free valuations in commercial real estate. I will say no to that all day long, and here's why. One, a valuation, you know, just like you all do comparative market analysis, CMAs, and I know we've had a great mastermind on Monday about how to do a great CMA. In commercial real estate, there's too many things happening in commercial real estate to give an actual valuation, to give it well, okay? And so I always say no to valuations. Nobody will ever get a free valuation out of me, because in commercial real estate, there is a higher level of fiduciary responsibility. And if they need to know the value of their office condo, they need to hire an appraiser to do that, because there's just too many variables. Does that make sense? Anybody got any questions there? I get a lot of agents that reach out to me saying, can you do a valuation on this? And I'm like, yeah, no, not going to do it. Not because I'm rude, but because why take on risk and liability when there's nothing in it for you? Client wants to lease 50,000 square feet of warehouse space for chemical manufacturing. Now, this is a big one, okay? And the reason why it's big, it's not because of the 50,000 square feet. It's because chemical manufacturing is purely defined on zoning. What is something zoned? So a lot of times when agents will call on my listing, the first thing I ask is well, what does your client need to use the building for? And I ask that question because this is where I find that majority of agents don't understand that chemical manufacturing can only, if we just look at my market and my market alone, Louisville, Kentucky, you've got to have an EZ1 zoning in order to do anything chemical. And so if I've got light industrial listed and somebody's calling on light industrial and they say, well, they need to make paint, they can't. Right? And so this is one where, you know, until you learn all the necessary zonings, you know, this is a tough one, because you don't want to point a client in a direction or show them space for something that can't even be possible, right? So in commercial real estate, industrial, retail, whatever the case is, the client is looking at you to already know that for them. This is why we get paid big bucks in commercial real estate, because we are supposed to not show them a ton of properties. We're supposed to show them the right property, meaning we don't schedule unless, one, it can have chemical manufacturing. That's number one. Number two, it's got the right amount of square footage that they need. Three, do they need sprinklers? Of course they need sprinklers. If the building is built 40 years ago, it doesn't have sprinklers because sprinklers didn't come out until 36 years ago. So I'm not going to take them to places that are just unheard of, right? And so this is where it starts to get a little bit more complex than just a typical 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath house, right? And so these are the types of questions that I ask when people say, should I do this myself? Well, let's think about that for a second. Now, if you take this deal to an industrial commercial broker that can actually help you, guide you, and make you a part of that transaction the entire way through, where you're doing hands-on learning and you get 50% of the deal versus 0 of 0, might make a little bit of sense. Jim, I'm not watching the chat, so if there's anything I need to address, just let me know. Client wants to build a concrete plant. I just did this. This was interesting. I needed to find land, and we needed to be able to manufacture concrete on that land. And so, you know, here's this, again, we can go 55 million ways, but I'm trying to get you guys thinking about, okay, when opportunities come your way, what's the best way to handle it? Well, on a concrete plant, you got to watch the zoning, you got to watch the acreage, you've got to watch the terrain, you've got to watch the noise ordinances that exist around it and how far out do they go, height restrictions. There was a whole list of things. And so on a search like this, I initially identified about 32 parcels that it could potentially work for. And then I looked at each of the different ordinances and zoning mechanisms that went into the concrete facility and narrowed that down to, guess what, you all? One. And if that one didn't work because my buyer didn't like it for whatever reason, then I was back to zero, right? We made it work. We had to get it zoned, but it all happened and it all worked. But again, there's so much more complexity in commercial real estate than meets the eye. It's not just one thing. But here, you've heard me talk about these options. Refer the deal to commercial broker, receive a referral fee. Just hand it off and walk away. Get a referral fee. Negotiate a good referral fee that makes you happy and that isn't, crazy to the commercial agent you're
What do you
sending.
see, Stephanie, as sort of the kind of the standards? 25%, because the
Yeah,
residential, you see that 25% people, no questions asked. People take those all day long.
absolutely, all day
Okay.
long.
All right.
Absolutely. Co-broker the deal with an experienced broker so you can remain in the deal. Look, depending on what real estate firm you're with, what brokerage you're with, one, go to your broker. Go to your broker and ask, can you co-broker with someone? Just make sure, I never want to say anything on here that overrides what your broker has in their ICA. So just verify and make sure that, all that's good. But also too, if you do the deal, make sure you get permission from your designated broker because ultimately they're the one holding your license that's going to be liable in the event that somebody gets sued or you put this client at risk. That happens too often. We talk about emotion in residential real estate. It gets really emotional. Well, in commercial, it gets really litigatable. When what I mean by that is it's all about money, right? And this is big money to people. So they don't hesitate to hold you liable for something, which is why it's a big deal to make sure that you have the right partnership or the right, knowledge to go and attack these deals one by one. Now, we talked about platforms that you could do if you're doing some of these smaller deals. If you're going to get your feet wet in commercial real estate and, it's office rental or it's, maybe a 2-acre parcel of land or, whatever the case might be, depending on your knowledge base, because everybody's at a different knowledge base. These are free websites that you can get free information. You can comp on them. You can look at active listings. There's a lot more than this. I didn't put them all on the slide deck. I just put the ones that are the most reliable. There's a ton of paid ones, but if you don't have access to those, these can get you by for some of the smaller, less extensive transactions. RPR, you all are all realtors. You probably use RPR on residential all the time. RPR in commercial is excellent. The reason why it's excellent is if you're a member and have the designation of CCIM or SIOR, which a lot of commercial people have those, they're realtors. That makes them a realtor. So RPR is connected to all of their data as well and aggregating it into RPRs. You can get some valuation information on commercial properties, but remember, when things roll back into the numbers, as far as rental income, or the business operating income, or, what a hotel's making, that's the data that nobody has. That's where it gets extensive. And, you can't just do that off the cusp. You can't just make those values up. It is based on what that NOI is, net operating income on those properties. All right. Now, some of you are in markets where you've got data on the MLS. It's going to be, limited data, but you might be able to find some of these spots on or a place for your client or tenant or whoever you're representing through the MLS and it be just fine. That I get offered office listings on almost on a daily basis, and we keep turning them down because we've got about 16 that are listed for sale currently or for lease, and they're just not moving in our market right now. So we've just stopped taking the listings. And so, you just got to look at what's worth it to you. I had a residential agent call me over the weekend that said, look, I can't get this office leased. And I said, I can't get mine leased either. It just is what the market is right now in Louisville, Kentucky. Nobody's looking for office space. And so you just have to make that judgment. But the good news is that you can look on RPR and you can look on all these sites and just see what the competition is. And if there's 73 opportunities for the exact same office condo, well, then that'll tell you right there, maybe it's not a great listing to have. Any questions as it relates to that? We got to get this group interactive.
Stephanie, Svetlana had a great question. One of them you just answered on the last slide, like where can you search for properties? So let's say you're an agent, you've decided, okay, this is my wheelhouse. I'm going to take this, I'm going to run with it, and I'm going to go with it on my own. She wants to know, how do you protect your commission when you work with your buyer and submitting an offer to the listing agent, right? Now, this is getting ready to come up in residential too. So what to say and what needs to be signed by whom, and does your buyer pay you and sign a buyer agreement? There you go.
All right. So I'm going to answer this 3 ways. Okay. And the reason why is because there is 3 answers. Number 1, if you work with a buyer or a tenant, you need to have them sign an exclusive representation agreement, or in commercial real estate, we call it a commission agreement. We don't have agency in commercial real estate. As realtors, you do, but we don't. So there is no agency disclosures. So a commission agreement. This has been done in commercial real estate since before I got into the business, and that was 26 years ago. All right. But you will have them sign that. If you don't, you will be working at your own risk. Okay.
Stephanie, I can tell you a quick story about that on a $1 million piece of land here in Columbus from a builder that was selling it. And this is a builder I'd done business with in the past. And I got the document signed that said the seller was going to pay the buyer's agent fee. I was representing the buyer. And, we got all the way to the closing table. And this gentleman that I knew from the past said, it was on the settlement statement. He goes, I'm not paying this. I'm not paying the buyer's agreement. The buyer should be paying it. And he had signed this document just like 5 months prior. And I literally had to go and get the document pulled because it was a stalemate sitting there at the table, at the closing table, when everybody's supposed to be signing. I had to go get this document and push it in front of him. And he still grumbled about it and didn't want to do it, even though he had personally signed it himself. It was going to screw me out of 30 grand in commission right there. It was the Wild West, and he didn't care. There's nothing personal. It was just business.
It's just business. That's right. And I'm glad you shared that, Jim, because that's the thing. Your buyer needs to take care of you. All right. And the reason why is because if you rely on every selling or listing broker to pay you, you won't get paid. You might get lucky, but you will get screwed. And the reason why that is it goes back to where I first started. There is no code of ethics. Nobody's bound by anything. There is nothing protecting you. There is no cooperating commission on any of these listing platforms. If you call a commercial broker, Svetlana, I'm gonna role play with you. If you pick up the phone and you call Mark Dandy, I'm making up a name, with CBRE, and your first words out of your mouth is, what is the cooperating commission? He's going to hang up on you. You know why? Because that tells him right then and there, you are not a commercial broker. Because us in commercial real estate are getting paid by our buyer, and we don't worry about it. Now, you can ask for more from the seller. It's all negotiation, just like you all are getting ready to do in residential. You could put cooperating compensation in a letter of intent and hope that the seller says okay. But what if the seller says no? And then your buyer knows that it's your commission holding up his dreams of getting this new place for his business, or this new apartment complex, or this hotel, or whatever it is. That's why it's just better to work. So that is why I had a real estate agent, a real estate agent in Ohio reach out to me and wanted to buy strip centers. He had X amount of dollars with his group. He was a real estate agent. And I said, well, you're going to have to sign my buyer fee agreement. Well, we don't do that. I go, because you sell residential. And this is a year ago, guys. This is way before all these NAR lawsuits and settlements happened. And I said, well, then I'm not going to work for you, because I don't even like working with buyers, to be quite frank. And if you're not going to pay me, I really don't want to work with you. I'm, being honest. I got enough on my plate. I don't need to add one more thing that I may or may not get paid on. He refused to pay me. He was a real estate agent. He refused to sign my agreement. I don't know if he ever bought a retail center, but he certainly didn't buy one from me. You just have to protect yourself. It's normal in commercial real estate to have that done. And here's the other negative thing about it. My son learned this the valuable way. My son does 100% commercial real estate. He does not touch residential. First out of the gate, he showed a pretty good sized building, and he showed it 3 times. And I said, Dylan, are you on a fee agreement? He goes, no, but they're going to take care of me. And I'm like, oh gosh. I'm in Vegas at one of our conferences, and I get the phone call. And of course I'm in a mastermind session or a breakout session, and I ignore it. And he texts me, 911, mom, 911. Don't ever anybody make fun of him. Okay. I step out and I go, what's wrong? He goes, they wrote the offer with somebody else. Guys, it was his first deal out of the gate. It was like $41,000. So I called that agent that took the deal, never showed the building. I happened to have a relationship. And I said, look, come on now. She gave him 25% referral fee for doing the 3 showings, but it should have been 100% his. But again, he said, no, these guys are great. They're going to take care of me. No, it's business. Look, Jim's story's even stronger than that. You had it signed and he didn't want to pay. So, those are the things that are important when it comes to commercial real estate. It's like, you've got to get your big girls and boys panties on and just get them to sign it. And if they are not willing to compensate you, then move on, period. Move on. Did we have any other follow? Okay. Somebody just put, it's nothing personal. It's just business. I love that. So
they wanted to know, Svetlana wanted to know, what's the normal percentage to agree on in commercial real estate? Start with 3%. Is that a standard number?
No, it's not. And here's the thing. Okay. When you're dealing with leasing, okay, it could be greater than that. And 2, the bigger the deal gets, the less that number could potentially be. So you need to work that out with your client. Mine is all over the place. Okay. Mine are all over the place. And the reason why is because the deal number, the number of dollars is all over the place. Okay. But I mean, it could be 5%. It could be 3%. It could be 2%. It could be 10%. It really just depends on that deal volume. So there's never going to be anything standard. I just know what my hourly rate is. If I were to sit down, look at what I made on my tax returns last year, calculated up the number of hours I worked, and that's how I identify my hourly rate. When I'm sitting down with a client, I say, look, I think, this could take us, 61 hours before we get this under wraps. And, this is what I'm worth. I know that might seem a little bit high to you, but you get what you pay for it. Nobody ever complains back to me. I mean, you just got to demand. And then the ones that don't agree to it, I don't work with them. All right. So many business brokers, so many times business brokers are not sharing commission. And that is 100% true, Bharat. So my husband is a CBI. He's a very good one. And there is a lot of times that he will not offer cooperating compensation. And here's why. If an agent broker is inquiring about an entire portfolio of restaurants, and they have never sold restaurants. There's a whole lot that goes into transferring of franchises. And a lot of times on those deals, the deals never close because the agent representing the buyer has no idea what they're doing. They just want to be compensated, and then they want to throw in their 2 cents, and then they ruin the deal because they have no idea how to handle it. And so that is where you get your buyers to sign a compensation agreement, and then nobody has to worry about that. They get paid, they get compensated. A lot of times on the large business transactions, there's not enough commission to pay a cooperating compensation. Okay? But that's where I always say, if you start out by charging your buyer, it doesn't matter. And so, Bharat, I wouldn't let that a business broker won't pay you it's not their problem to comp. Here's the way I look at it. We go get a listing and we're getting paid. I am going to make sure at my listing contract signing, I'm going to get compensated. I did not agree to make sure every broker in the world gets compensated, right? That's the way we got to start looking at this. This is where it gets really, really hairy, because this is why there's all these NAR lawsuits that took place because of compensation. It's been this way in commercial quite some time. I mean, for as long as I can remember, it's not anything new. And where it's gotten a little bit screwy is because some agents are always wanting to make sure that a seller's agent takes care of them and never get their buyer's agent to take care of them.
Jennifer Mendoza says, are commercial agents bound to work in the state they are licensed in, or can they cross state lines? Do they need to be licensed in every state they work? Because you mentioned franchise restaurants. What if those are across the country?
So depending on your brokerage, there is a real thing, and it's called license portability. You can Google license portability. What license portability means for commercial real estate is if your brokerage is open for business in that state, then they will recognize license portability. So I told you we have listings in 36 states. We don't hold 36 licenses. We hold about 7 on our team. So we happen to be with a brokerage that is open in all 50 states. Therefore, we can utilize license portability. Now, I'm going to break this down because it's very difficult. You can go to the ceshop.com and type in license portability. Don't get it confused with license reciprocity. 2 different things. License portability. Read about license portability. It'll tell you the states that honor it. It'll tell you the states that don't. It'll tell you the rules around that. And so if you're with the franchise broker, and what I mean by that is your Remaxes, your Keller Williams, your Coldwell Bankers, your Century 21s, there's a whole list of them. Those are all independently owned and operated franchises. So they are not open in all the states, okay? But then you've got other companies that are national. No matter where they are, they're still that same company. I happen to be with EXP. We are open in all 50 states. So what license portability enables all of our commercial brokers and agents to do is to utilize it and do business in those states that we're allowed to. There's about 11 states that are turf states. Those are red states. Red means stop. Red means you got to have a license. But the rest of the US is wide open for business. When we start to talk about other countries, there's a ton of countries where there is no real estate licensing, okay? And so as it relates to those, as long as our brokerage is open for business, we have a way in to do business in that country. Based on what those licensing requirements are. Some of them just ask for a work permit, so it's handled. But yes, you can do that depending on the brokerage you're with. It's harder. It's hard to do in residential because you got to have MLS access. So in order to do that, you got to have the license, in that state to get it. But in commercial, exactly, you can absolutely do it.
So we're speaking with Stephanie Gilezan, absolute commercial real estate champion, and she's teaching us today how as residential agents, a lot of times we can capitalize on some of these commercial deals. If you think about it, all of your clients that you have, especially small business owners and things like that, a lot of them probably own some commercial real estate. So if you have questions for Stephanie, she can answer those. One of those, I'll bring up Stephanie. We're waiting to see the rest of the crowd comes up with some. Is how would you find a good commercial agent? Like, what search tool would you use to find a good commercial agent to network with? Because I'm assuming a lot of commercial agents don't want to screw with residential whatsoever. They're
Oh, no.
probably a good referral partner to send business back and forth.
Absolutely. And I mean, look at your company directories, right? If you've got a whole commercial side of the company, look at those people. And remember, it's not area specific, so to speak. Some states are, like California is a turf state. You got to have a licensed California commercial broker in California to do that business. Okay. But, start networking with them because they don't want to do residential. They could be a great referral partner for you. They could also be willing to teach you, guide you, mentor you, and you guys, work through the transactions with them. But definitely look within your brokerage for that. And then if your brokerage doesn't have anybody that's in commercial real estate, turn to turn to somebody on this call and ask them to recommend somebody phenomenal to you. We all know a bunch of great people.
Jennifer had a question about AI. Are there any AI tools you can utilize that help as a search tool? Because you list off a bunch of the free search things. Is AI incorporated in there yet at all?
No, and the biggest reason why I mean, and it could be you all, but as far as a search tool for data, commercial real estate data is some of the most expensive out there. For example, like CoStar data. Everybody hears the name CoStar. Like you guys can't stand Zillow. We can't stand CoStar, but we have to utilize CoStar if we're really doing a lot of business. I spend about $3,700 a month on data just to get access to information. Okay. That's how expensive it is. And that's through CoStar because it does enable me to do a full underwriting of a property. Okay. And so that's why AI hasn't taken shape because in that side of things yet, because they don't have access to it. Free AI tools don't have access to that data, and I don't see them ever getting it. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think there's an AI MLS yet, is there? Not that
Not
I'm,
yet. Nope, not
yeah,
yet.
yeah. All right, what do we got here? How do
Very
you put?
good. Barat has a question.
Yes, sir.
Do EXP can do commercial brokerage in New Jersey?
Yeah, EXP's open in commercial or for New Jersey.
Is New Jersey a turf state or is it an open one?
Okay, so I'm not Wikipedia, but I kind of am. So New Jersey does not require a business broker license to sell businesses, but it is a turf state for real estate. So they don't allow a commercial agent to come in and do a real estate deal, but you can do a business transaction there without having the New Jersey real estate license.
Great. We had a question that says, this call being recorded? Yes, Jing, we record all of them and we store them on our YouTube channel. You'll definitely want to subscribe to our YouTube. There's over 50 videos on there right now of all kinds of different topics like this. If you guys are getting some value out of this, give us a thumbs up on there if you've got it. Svetlana has a question. We're going to post all the links. Jing will get them in there right now so that you have all the links to our Instagram page, our Facebook page, our website, and also our YouTube channel. So you have that. We had a question. Svetlana had a question. You may have answered this already, but it might be worth going over again, Stephanie. How do you assess if the property you found is priced well, or is that you mentioned called a valuation? You negotiate it down as much as you can and write the offer on behalf of your buyer.
No. So in commercial real estate, you have, let's say owner user, where an owner is going to be using it. So it's not an income producing property, so to speak, right? So then you're just truly valuating the real estate, the building, the dirt it sits on. But in commercial real estate, a lot of this is income producing property. If it's a retail center, you've got tenants paying you rent. If it's an apartment complex, you've got tenants paying you rent. You know, it could be an industrial warehouse that you've got a tenant paying rent. And so the valuation there expands. It expands to what is the NOI, right? The net operating income. If a buyer buys this for pure investment purposes to collect the rents, you know, what is that worth? And that's where capitalization rate comes into play. People are looking for a specific cap rate. When interest rates were low, those cap rates went low, right? Because if the interest rate was 3%, a 6% cap rate was damn good. You're 3 times in your money, and that's phenomenal. But when interest rates started to get up in the 8.5%, 9% range, then would somebody finance a property at 8.67% interest rate only to get a return on their money at an 8.5 cap rate? Would they? No. So that's where I'm talking about valuation. And so in order to get that cap rate higher, to look more appealing to the investor, the property value must come down. That's the only way, unless you can go back in there and renegotiate all those leases and get a higher income. But that's highly unlikely if they're
That's
locked
a
in.
handful of lawsuits waiting to happen right there.
Exactly. So if they're locked into a lease, you're not going to be able to do that. So, you know, that's where valuation in commercial real estate is not about square footage and acreage and number of bathrooms. There's a lot of factors that play a whole big number into it. And so it's not just something that you can just come up with on the fly. A lot of times that takes looking at someone's tax returns, looking at their profit and loss statements for the building itself, looking for their deposit. All of those things come into consideration because in reality, it is real estate, but it's a business behind the real estate.
I think a great opportunity for residential agents is this: if you have a personal relationship with somebody where you've sold them their home and they are a business owner and they own a lot of commercial real estate, it pays you to partner with a commercial real estate agent and let them go in and do a stealth evaluation to see, because sometimes it pays for commercial people to turn those commercial properties, to actually sell, pull their equity and go, depending on all the market and everything that's going on, and actually do another property. You can be sitting on an extra 2 or 3 transactions, and you have the personal relationship, and you can get this commercial agent to go in and pull all the records and things like that and see maybe it's time for them to sell and avoid capital gains and all kinds of things that are going on that a commercial agent would know how to do. You have the relationship, and so you introduce them to your commercial partner, and then you ask your commercial partner, like, every time you run into residential real estate, I want to be your guy or your gal.
That's right.
Any more questions for Stephanie? That was a great call, Stephanie. We appreciate it. That's something that people can do to help supplement this time with residential real estate while everybody's freaking out that the sky is falling because the interest rates are still awesome, but they got used to 2 and 3% interest rates for a while. Those artificially low, never coming back interest rates that we'll never see again. And this is just a great way to bring it in. Stephanie, what's the longest, to give people a feel for how long it takes to do a commercial deal? What's the longest commercial deal ever took you from point A of showing the property to point B, getting it closed? What's the longest you ever had?
3 years.
3 years.
But listen, okay, these are a lot of what I do. I do a lot of land deals. You know, I've got 4 right now that I'm getting rezoned for a new concept that's coming, not a new concept to the world, but a new concept for Louisville, Kentucky. And so we have to go through zoning. We have to reintroduce a brand to the market. We've got to, you know, get people excited about it. So there's a whole lot of moving parts, you know, into the equation. And so when you're doing land development deals, which are my favorite, they take the longest, but they're absolutely my favorite. It can take a very long time, but they're also well worth the wait. But this is why you've got to do more than just that, because you've got to keep things going to have income. You know, I couldn't do one deal and wait 3 years to get paid. I got to keep the thing, you know, I got to keep it all moving. So,
Love
but it
it,
can
love it.
take long.
Well, Yeah, let's see if we had one more message come in. So Stephanie, we could potentially partner with you. Is that what I heard? Are you open to some partnerships, Stephanie?
Absolutely. Now, here's the one thing, it's not on everything, but I'll be honest and I'll point you to the person that would work for you. And that's just because, it's one of those things where you never say yes as a whole. You have to be strategic in what you do and what you represent. And I'm a very strategic person, but I'll put you in if it's not right for me, I'll hand you to somebody that it will be right for.
So
Okay.
you stay in your lane and you stay in your seat on the bus, if you will.
That's 100% the truth, and that's what we all should do. That's how you really build a good business.
I love it. Well, great job by Stephanie. Everybody, a round of applause and a big thank
Thank
you
you
to
all.
Stephanie on here. Stephanie, are you brave enough to put your contact info out there, or do you want to have people reach out to you through the person that invited them on here? How do you want to do that?
I will put my email address on there. Of course, you can Google me and find me everywhere, but I will put my email address on there for you guys and you all can send me an email. Thank
Great.
you.
And as we're getting ready to wrap up, guys, Stephanie's going to put her in there. You can always download the chat box, just so you know. You go down to the chat box. There's 3 dots. It'll say more. If you hover over with your mouse, you click on it. You go to the top, and it says Save Chat. You can save the chat there. I want everybody to keep in mind that we do have multiple resources for you. Of course, we do these Realtor Masterminds every Monday at noon. We've got one again next Monday for you. If somebody knows which one that is, we're going to be doing, somebody let me know. We do record these. So if you heard something great from Stephanie, but you missed it, go ahead and go to the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe there. We've got 194 subscribers and over 50 videos already. All kinds of great stuff. We have an Instagram page. Follow us on Instagram. And then we have a Facebook page. If you can't find it on Facebook, have whoever invited you on here invite you to the group. We post the recordings there and updates and things like that. And did I hear somebody getting ready to say what we're doing next Monday? Did I hear that?
I was going to have Stephanie promoted because she does it better than ever, and it's her guy. We have Jonathan is going to be on.
Stephanie, what are we doing next Monday? Why should people come on and bring a friend next Monday?
So we're going to talk about the market report as a whole. So we're bringing in Carrington Holdings, which is the debt servicer on almost every single residential home loan that exists out in the United States. Okay. We're talking trillions of dollars that they manage. We have John come in, pretty much twice a year to kind of tell us what to be looking for. Are they seeing foreclosures rise? What are we seeing as far as, markets that might be leveling out or it's still, flying high, whatever the case might be. But he basically gives us the health market on all things financing residential. And why that is important, even for somebody like me, is because look, what happens in residential also dictates what happens in commercial as well. And so it's important for me to understand that. So invite everyone, whether they're in commercial, residential, but this is humongous content. It's extremely valuable. And we're going to talk about, what the outlook looks like for the existing debt out there that's being serviced.
It's always one of our biggest and most heavily attended Realtor Masterminds. So make sure you show up. We had people get shut out the last time on it. Hopefully, did we raise it above 200 participants this time? Okay, beautiful. So anyways, yeah, don't get shut out anyways. We'll just do a little FOMO there, fear of missing out.
Get on early, you won't get shut out.
Get on early. If you're early, you're on time. You might just get shut out. And so that'll be great. You'll definitely want to see what's going on with that. And what a lot of agents are doing is taking the information they're getting and they are turning that around and turning it into social media content to put out there because look, your clients want to know what's going on and what's happening out there with the mortgages because what they're hearing maybe on the news may not be actually what's really happening. So it's going to be a great call next Monday, noon Eastern Standard Time. Jump on, bring a friend. We'd love to hear from you. And thanks a lot. Great job, Stephanie. We appreciate that. It was incredible stuff like there. Great way to add people an extra 50, 100, 150 grand in commission in the next 12 months to your GCI. So great. Thanks, everyone.